Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we're in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Innu, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Lynn Nesbitt, and I'm chairing today's panel. Joining me on the panel are Linda Schultz and Richard Whitbrad. Our administrative personnel is Crystal Harland, and our assessor is Stephen Lobenstein. We'll be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the Board's decision with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the Board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I'll confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the Board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the Board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We will hear items 4 and 5 on our docket today. Mrs. Harland, please affirm the assessor's and applicant's testimony.
Yes, Madam Chair. Mr. Assessor, would you please state your full name?
Stephen Lobenstein.
Thank you. Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Applicant, would you please state your full name?
Trevor Smith.
Thank you. Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you, and good morning, Mr. Lobenstein and Mr. Smith. Before we begin, Mr. Smith, you are appealing the assessed value of the properties today?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you for that. Then let's begin with item 4. This is file number 25-463 900 Bradford Street. Mr. Lobenstein.
Sure. The roll number is 070023333000 900 Bradford Street. It's for the roll year 2026. We have a reference date of April 1st, 2023, and an assessed value of $1,717,000. It's on my front page. Moving down to the property descriptions, you can see that the actual year built, the effective years built range from 1959 to 2017. The wall heights range from 12 feet to 17 feet, and the zoning is M2, manufacturing general. The land area is 54,244 square feet. We have a plan area, gross floor and leasable area of 12,615 square feet, which gives us a land to plan of 4.3. I'm moving down to my page 2. You can see that the request for information was received and they are compliant. And then we're going to move on to we're just going to scroll down to my page 4 quickly and just look at the income. I'll come back to my comparables. So we can see we have the leasable area of 12,615 square feet. It's broken up into 2 premises. The first one's 8,935 square feet. The second one is 3,680 square feet. The reason they're broken up is because there is an addition. As I mentioned before, the effective years built range from 1959 to 2017. So that addition, the 3,680 square feet, occurred in 2017. The original building is 8,935 square feet. So for the rents, for the 1953 portion, we have $7.36. And for the 2017 portion, we have $10.49. We do have an average or rent of $8.27 per square foot for the entire building. Looking at the vacancy, we're applying 4.5%. The expenses are 3%. We have a shortfall of $4 to give us a net operating income of $94,408 with an overall capitalization rate of 5.5%. When we apply that to the net operating income, we get an estimated assessed value of $1,717,000. So we're going to move back up to my page 3. So I mentioned before that we had this broken up into 2 separate premises. So for my comparables, I looked for similar sized premises, so 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 square feet. I also looked for premises around the 8,000 square foot. So we have 10,000, 9,000 square feet, and it's a total of 12,000 square feet. So we have some at 10,000 and 15,000 square feet, just to show you buildings that are a similar size. So if you look on the left-hand column for address, you can see that we're on Century, Sargent, King Edward, Dublin, St. James, Border. These are all very close to the subject property. They're in the St. James area. When we look at the lease starts, we have lease starts in 2016 going up to 2022. So we have 2 at 2022, a few at 2020, and a couple at 2021, and then a few at 2018 and 1 at 2016. The lease terms are pretty typical for the market. You're looking from 2 to 11 years here. The majority of them are 5 to 6 years, which is fairly typical for a lease. We've gone over the leased area. So the wall heights are fairly similar to the subject property. As I mentioned, they have a range of 12 to 17 feet. So the office portion would be 12, and then the warehousing portion is usually around 17 for this property. So this would be the warehousing portions that we're looking at for wall heights. We have some at 13, 17, 24, 18, 26, 19, and 14. So we have some that are smaller, some that are larger, all fairly typical for industrial buildings. The effective year builds for this area, we have ranges from 1962 all the way up to 1977. So that's pretty typical of the St. James area and pretty similar to the subject property as well. And now you can see the net rent. So these net rents are taken from the market. This is what we use to build our model. And these net rents range from $7.25 a square foot all the way up to $12. So these are very supportive of our model rents that I just went over on page 4. So moving along, I'm going to scroll down to my page 6, and you can see our capitalization rate chart here. Industrial is the second column. You can see the city of Winnipeg's in the first column, ranging from 5.35 up to 7.3. So this is the 20th to the 80th percentile. This is where the majority of our model rents fall within the city. So at 5.5, it's on the lower end, but it's still within the 20th to the 80th percentile. You'd be looking at a lower cap rate here because of the size of the property, with it only being approximately 12,615 square feet. It doesn't carry a lot of risk as compared to a building that might be 80,000, 90,000 square feet. And also, although part of it was built in 1959, another part of it was built in 2017 as well. You can see some of the outside sources there. They have ranges from 5.5% for a cap rate all the way up to 7.3. So we're kind of within that range, all the way up to 6.5. So we're kind of within that range as well. Moving along to my page 8, you can see the map. You can see where it's located in the St. James sort of industrial area. I have a street view picture of the property on the bottom of page 8 as well. Gives you an idea of sort of what the parking lot looks like. They have 2 loading bays that you can see there. The office portions in the front. This is all very typical of a industrial building, warehousing. On page 9, you can see another photo from the above part. So I haven't been able to figure this out. So you can see it outlined with the rear portion going to the back, and they have some parking there. And then when we took another picture, that rear portion on my page 10 has a line cutting it off. So I don't think that it's part of this property, or there was a replot done on this property at some point and our system hasn't been updated. So for the purposes of this, I'm just gonna, on my page 10, I'm just gonna assume that the property is sort of that rectangle, and the rear part in the back for the parking isn't part of the property. I don't know if Mr. Smith can speak to this or not, but unfortunately, the limited time I had to review this, I could not figure out why our system has 2 different sort of looks at the property here, or 2 different diagrams. So again, on page 10, you can see it at the bottom of page 10. You can sort of see another view of the property. They are compliant, so page 11 and 12 and 13 are the mailer. This is a owner-occupied property. So going through all my evidence, I feel that the value at $1,717,000 is fair and should be confirmed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lobenstein. Mr. Smith, questions?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I can clear up the land portion to start with. Well, I'll do that in my presentation, I guess. You had mentioned the dates of construction of the property. Would you agree that roughly 75% of the property was built in 1959?
Yeah, I mean, I talked about that. So we have 3,680 square feet built in 2017, and then the original building is almost 9,000 square feet built in 1959.
Yeah, no, I realize you talked about it. I'm just confirming that majority of the building was built at the earlier date. The rents that are assigned, this city, for the 2 properties we're looking at today, given workload, I'm assuming you haven't had the opportunity to view either property?
To inspect the properties? No, I have not inspected the properties today.
Okay, so the city is probably unaware then that there's no separate access to the new portion of the building. It's only accessed through the interior of the older portion of the property.
From looking at the pictures, I would agree with that. It seems like they put the addition on and the access is just through the older portion.
Okay, so it's really not a separate piece that would be rented out at a separate rate, correct?
That's a good point. No, I would agree that they would not be able to rent that out from how it looks in the configuration.
Okay. And looking at ceiling height for the property. So as you said, the front of the property, front of the building, mostly office, is a 12-foot wall height. There's some portion of the rear that is also 12 foot, about 1,800 square feet, I believe. And then the original warehouse is a 16-foot wall height, correct?
That's what I have. Yeah, 16 foot for the original and 17 foot for the addition. Okay.
And looking at the area, so we have 1.25 acres. That gives us a land to plan area ratio of 4.3 to 1. Would you, and I know you don't have the answer to this, but I have to ask the question, that rear land portion, would you agree that that's not really a usable portion of the property?
I guess this comes to my question. I don't know if you can answer this now. Is that their property, or is that been replotted off? Because I mean, my opinion on that is that it's not accessible to the street, so you're not going to be putting an addition there. But for industrial warehousing, there could be storage put out there and used in that sense, which is pretty typical for industry. So I guess that would be my answer.
Okay, I'll address it in my presentation, I guess.
Yeah.
It is their property, yes.
Okay.
But it is not usable. Okay, moving on then, now that we've confirmed the details about the property, just a quick look at your comparables. So these are typically newer properties than the subject. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, some are, like the subject properties, 1959. I have 1962, 1965. You know, I mean, they're in the era of this property.
Yeah. But somewhat newer. I mean, we're looking at 79, 77.
There's a few, yeah. There's a couple that are a little bit newer for sure.
Okay. And the wall heights, again, our warehouse portion is 16 foot, 17 foot on the new one, which is considerably smaller. We're looking at generally higher wall heights here as well, correct?
Well, I have some that are 13, 14, 18, which is very close. And there's some that are 26 and 24. So, I mean, there is a range for sure.
The Century Street, is that not just the office portion of that building?
In our system, we have it as 13 feet. I wouldn't know. I don't believe. I believe that it's just a flat roof going atop across the whole property, from what I can tell. I don't really think there is a like an office portion that's different from the warehousing portion.
Okay. And again, on the leases, again, just looking at the size here. So the lease comparables are typically, with the exception of 3, I guess, considerably smaller than the subject. They're in that 3,000 to 6,000 square foot range, and the subject is 12,600 and some square feet. Would that have an impact on appropriate rental rate?
It would have a slight impact. I wouldn't say a major impact due to the size of this property. You really only see economy of scales taking a big impact when you're getting into the higher square footages. But yeah, there'd be a slight one. Again, I just wanted to show how we modeled it. So we've modeled it this way with 2 separate premises. So I wanted to give the evidence as to how we came to this number.
Okay. Let's move on to capitalization rate then. 5.5% when I look at your chart on page number 6. As you indicated, it's towards the lower end of your, you have a general range of 5.35 to 7.3 for all industrial types. This would be almost at the bottom end of that range. For a property with a low ceiling height, low land area really, and considerable age for the majority of the property, is there a reason that it would fall towards 5.5?
Sure. Yeah. As I mentioned, with the property being as small as it is, it doesn't hold as much risk as a property. So that's 80,000 or 60,000 or 100,000 square feet. So a property like this has the ability to attract many different types of businesses, or I guess manufacturers, or any type of tenant really, or a building owner. So it doesn't hold as much risk as if you're having 100,000 square foot property, which is really just designed for a very particular type of usage, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, and when we look at the categories there, would you agree that this would be an industrial B property?
Sure. Yeah, I can agree with that. That's fine.
So when I look at the outside sources, we're looking at 6 to 7%, 6.5 to 7.5%, and 6 to 6.75%, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, I don't think the outside sources look at these types of properties. They're pretty limited in their range and their scope, where we're mandated to look at all types of properties.
Well, I'll comment on that, I guess, later, but those are all of my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Ms. Schultz, questions for Mr. Lobenstein?
Yes, just one to clarify on your rent comparables. You've got 875 Century, two different spots that you have it here. Is that just the one building?
Yeah.
Because it's the same roll number, right?
It's two different units within there.
So very similar to your subject property. We've got 3,600 square feet and then about 96 on the second portion.
Yeah, that's
Is that
correct.
fair? Okay.
Yeah, there's just two different units in this building. So
Okay. All right. No, that's all I have for questions. Thank you. No
Thank
other
you.
questions.
Mr. Whitbread?
Just one question on page 9. Can you clarify for me on the photo where the new section is? I'm trying to determine where that over 3,000.
yeah, it'd be better to view on page 10. You can sort of see our lines aren't grayed here, but you can see that grayed out area. Like there's two different gray roofs. It's kind of attached to it. It says like on the top part of page 10, it kind of says 930. That's not part of 930. That's actually part of the subject property.
Okay.
900.
So the yellow line cutting.
Yeah, the yellow lines. It's not. Yeah, it's tough for our system to sort of separate it when they're this close together. So
okay, that makes more sense to me as I look at that. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. I just have a question again, following up on Mr. Smith's comment about access. So access to the new portion is through the old portion of the building. So in a sense, it's just one building, right? It's not two, can't separate them. Would it be the practice to separate it in different premises because it can't be separated? It's one unit as a whole.
Yeah, I mean,
and look at an overall rent. Like, I'm just not sure about the practice.
Sure, no, and that's fair. So we usually do this when you're adding like a newer addition onto a property. We'll separate the premise because a newer premise or a newer building will generate a different rate than an older building. So in this situation, that's the route the assessor decided to take when they put the building on. In this instance, he is correct. You can only access it from inside from the older building to the newer building. So technically, yeah, you would not probably be able to separate this out in the way that they would have their own entrance or exit. So I wouldn't say that this is an incorrect practice the way this went, but maybe this one should be looked at again. Although I will point out that within my comparables, there are some that are a very similar size to this property and some that are larger. I want to show that as well, that even if you were to rent out this property as a whole and you couldn't separate it, that the average rent of $8.27 a square foot for the whole thing is not, it would be typical of the market as well.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that explanation. That helps me. And my only other question was related to cap rates, which Mr. Smith covered. So I don't have anything more to add on that. So with that, we'll go to Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So 900 Bradford, it is a single owner occupant building. Always has been. There is no multi-tenant nature to the building, and that you can't access the newly constructed or newer constructed portion built in 2017 from the exterior. It's only accessed from the inside of the original building. Original building being built in 1959. Obviously, this is an older property, and along with all of the things that come along with that, it has low ceiling height, relatively small land area for loading and storage, etc. on the exterior. The roof of the original building is wood, so you have the issues that come along with that, being the low ceiling height. That does limit the property in terms of what can be done inside. In terms of warehousing, you can only stack to a certain height, which is less attractive to the majority of tenants on the market. And all of these things tend to drive lower rental rates in the marketplace. You also have to keep in mind, and I think the city's comparables speak to this a bit. I didn't really question it, but many of them are located on higher exposure and higher traffic areas, and are more of a commercial nature, in that they sell products out of some of the spaces, such as 875 Century. So that's why you're seeing $11 and $12 rents for that particular property. It has high exposure to passing traffic, and it is a quasi-retail rent that you're seeing out of that spot. So coming back to our property, again, it is 12,615 square feet in total. We're not looking at separate portions of that. So any occupant tenant that you get would have to be that size. So the rent should be based on tenants of that size in the marketplace, and of a similar location in terms of profile, etc. The land area, as I mentioned, is 1.25 acres, 4.3 to 1 land to plan area ratio, which typically is reasonably good for an industrial property. I will point you back to the city's page number 9 at this point, as it shows it better than I do on my overhead, outlined in purple on the city's aerial there. This was a rail spur line that back extended portion of the property that was decommissioned, and it was the opportunity was given to adjacent landowners to buy these parcels of land, and it's been kind of hit and miss. Not all of them are sold, so you have these kind of interrupted portions of land ownership there, where portions are owned by adjacent landowners, and then some are still owned by the rail line, etc. So this particular property owner did take the opportunity to buy that land. The reason that he bought that land is that he owns 2 adjacent properties, the one immediately to the south and the one kitty corner to the west of the subject property. Now, it is completely unused. It's overgrown with trees and shrubs, etc. So it's not used for storage. It's simply there. He wanted to control it and was able to get it at a low cost. So that's why he has that particular property. So in reality, the actual usable area of the property is considerably less than that 4.3 to 1. So there is really no significant outside storage possibilities. If you look at the front cover of my brief, you'll see that there's a parking area adjacent to the building, and then a dock level loading at the rear of the property that sticks out slightly from the back of the property. So really no exterior storage for the subject, which in industrial is obviously important to many tenants. Moving on, my photos begin on page number 4. This is the front office area. It is dated, well worn. I didn't include a lot of photos of it, but it is what it is. Then we move into the older warehouse portion, you can see a photo of that with the 16-foot wall height and the exterior windows there. And more of the original building with the loading on the following page. Another picture of the original warehouse with the low ceiling height. And then we have a photo of the exterior yard area on the following page and one of the kitchen. I see that a photo of the newer portion wasn't included. I apologize for that. It's newer. It's, you know, similar but newer with a higher ceiling height. Not much else to say about that. And it's simply a pass through from the existing warehouse into that particular space on the north side of the property. Follow that up with a screenshot of the city's property property details for the subject property. You can see the age of construction and the ceiling heights as indicated there. Following that, we have the site description, very similar to the city, fronting on Bradford, not on Route 90. And the location follows on page number 9. We can jump forward into the valuation. Obviously, the property is owner occupied. And we're looking to compare it to appropriate properties for determining appropriate rental rate. Now, the two properties that we're looking at here are immediately adjacent to the subject property. They are arm's length rental properties, and our 903, 905 King Edward is kitty corner to the subject property fronting on King Edward. It has 2 tenants in it. It was originally built in 1959, so exactly the same as the subject. Has considerably higher wall height. It's not an average wall height, it's the full wall height, 19 foot. And we have 2 tenancies in there of a similar size to the subject, 10,700 square feet and 11,147 square feet. Lease start dates for 5-year terms of 2020 and 2021, and lease rates of $6 and $6.50 a square foot. Jumping down, we have 880 to 888 Bradford. Now, this is the property immediately adjacent to the subject to the south. It is a multi-tenant property. Again, built in 1959. This one does have a 16-foot wall height, and we do have 4 tenancies in there. Now, granted, these are smaller than the subject, but the location, the type of building are identical to the subject, really no difference. So our lease start dates there, 2021, 2022, 21, 2018, and 2019. One was month to month. However, you can see the rental rates for that. For the smaller sizes here, again, 5,900 or 5,500 up to 7,900, we're looking at $6 per square foot, with the majority of them at just under $8 or at $8 per square foot. Again, for less than half the size of the subject property. Follow that up with a couple of photos just to show you what these properties are. 903, 905 King Edward. You can see the frontage there. One of them is a baseball training center / gym, and the other is a welding apprentice center on the other side of the property. Bottom of the page has 880 and 888 Bradford, or through 888 Bradford, the multi-tenant property. And that gives you a good indication of what what our comparables are. Now, I would certainly say that 903, 905 King Edward is superior to the subject in terms of profile, ceiling height, exposure, etc. And that particular property for similar sized units is getting $6 and $6.50 per square foot. The smaller units, again, on Bradford, are going for slightly more, but again, are significantly smaller. And one of them is built out as office space, as I recall. So looking at this, we have placed our rental rate for the subject property at what I would see as the absolute top end of what it should lease for on the rental market at $6.50 per square foot. Moving down, we use the same vacancy rate as the city. Shortfall and expenses are the same, so we can move into capitalization rate. Now, as Stephen had said, there can be more demand for smaller properties in some circumstances, certainly. However, that is more than balanced out by demand for properties that are of this vintage. 1959 is a particularly old property in the city, which the majority of this property is. Low ceiling height, you have wood roof, and you really have no exterior storage to speak of. And the interior of the building has not been changed in quite some time. So you're looking at very dated improvements as well. Looking at capitalization rates in the marketplace, we've covered this many, many times in this cycle, so I won't go over it extensively. We have the same comparables as always. These are all true arm's length transactions in the marketplace, so they are true capitalization rates. You can see their sale dates range from 2019, with the majority between 2021 and 2022. They do range in size. Obviously, we're not going to have 6 perfect comps. What we do have is a good indication of what astute investors will pay for industrial assets in the city of varying sizes. Now, looking at the comps that are there, they are generally well located in Inkster Industrial Park, Sherwin Road, King Edward, on Route 90, similar to the subject or close to the subject there. Black Diamond is new development on the exterior of the city in the northwest. That is a premier transaction. Obviously, you can see the size is significantly different, selling at just under 59 million at a cap rate of 6.4%. Now, when you're buying an asset of that type, you're essentially buying a bond. So it is very safe. You know that it will generally always be leased, and demand will be high for it on the sale market as well. So cap rates for those tend to be at the very bottom end of the market, and you can see that transacted in 2021 for 6.4%. Our range is generally that 6.6% up to 6.1%, pardon me, up to 8.7%, with the bulk of the transactions in that 6 to 6.5% roughly. Looking at the market at that time as well, as I've mentioned many times, the Bank of Canada interest rate rose from 0.5% to 4.75% up to the valuation date over the course of a single year. So we saw a rise of just over 4% in the lending rate. Obviously, this has a direct impact on capitalization rates, on mortgage lending practices, mortgage lending rates, et cetera, demand in the marketplace. When your mortgage rate goes up that dramatically, it has a very significant cooling effect on the market. All of these things point towards capitalization rates not descending, and certainly not being at a 5.5% level at the bottom end of the city's cap rate range. So looking at the subject, yes, we have an older property, lower ceiling height. There is a newer portion of it, obviously, which we take into account. And it is of a smaller size that will draw perhaps more investors or purchasers than some larger properties. So we do take all of those aspects into consideration. And I've applied a capitalization rate of 6.25% in our valuation. So if you look at my page number 17, you can see the summary of our valuation versus the city's. So our rental rate is $6.50 based on the comps that we provided for you there. And the cap rate is 6.25%, well in line with both our comparables provided, as well as the exterior market transactions that the city outlines, running from 6 to 7.5%. So our final market value is $1,179,000. And I am open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Lobenstein, questions?
Just a few. Just turning to your page 8 there. You have a similar picture to what I had in my brief. We talked about no storage in there. There are some cars obviously parked there. Is that rental income they receive for that with those cars parked or stored there?
No. And in fact, I don't know when that picture is from, but there's no cars there now, certainly. It is... So when you go to the back of the property behind the loading area there, it's I'll generously call it uneven. There's kind of mountain of rubble and overgrown trees, etc. So there really would be no direct access from this property to that extended area, and the area itself is of the same type. It's largely overgrown, not entirely. Obviously, the area is closer to those buildings to the west. You can see that it's graveled, etc. But the part closer to the east is not a usable land area.
In your page 16, just your cap rates, you have 6 of them. I think you noted that they're all quite a bit larger than the subject property. In that sense, they're not quite similar at all.
Well, we have 3 that are certainly within the range of the subject. We have Church, King Edward, and Mission.
So those are around 12,000 square feet.
I didn't include the building area in that in this. We're looking at the scope of the investment.
Okay, those are all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lobenstein. Mr. Whitbread, questions?
No, I think I'm okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Schultz?
No questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to clarify again, Mr. Smith, the access to this property is only through Bradford Street, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Just looking again at those pictures. There are pictures everywhere opened. Okay, and then the parking is along the side of the building there, right?
That's correct.
There's a few little cars there.
There are cars there, yes. So if they need to use their loading dock, then they need to move all of the cars so that they can back up to the loading at the rear.
Okay. And so can they get big trucks in there, or do they have to get big trucks in there, or what?
They can. It certainly they'd need to clear out the lot, but they can get larger trucks backing up to the loading dock there. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
It's-
Thank you.
It's
Oh, go
fairly
ahead.
tight, but
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Just because it hasn't been raised to me, so I need to ask, is there any rebuttal evidence being presented today?
I have no rebuttal.
No.
I do not either.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lobenstein, would you care to make a summary statement then?
I have no summary. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Smith?
No, that's fine. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Then that will conclude item number 4. And give me a minute here. We go to item number 5. Go ahead, Mr. Lobenstein, but before I note that you're requesting a burden of proof be shifted to the applicant.
That's true. Yeah, I'll read it in and I'll go through my evidence there.
Thank you. Just on the burden of proof side.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So the roll number is 075690759000 700 King Edward Street. Roll year is 2026. Reference dates April 1st, 2023. So you see, I am looking for the burden of proof to be placed on the applicant under section 53(3)(b). That's on my page 1. Scroll down to my page 2, you can see we had not received anything for the information year of 2022. We had received a response the year before. Going forward, we're going to scroll down all the way down to my page. Actually, we'll start at page 15 or 16, sorry. You can see that's when the first letter went out, April 13th, 2023. And if we scroll up, we didn't receive anything. We sent out a second letter. That's my page 13 on June 9th, 2023, and that's the registered mail. If you look across from that date on the left-hand side, you can see the number ending 466CA. That's the tracking number. So if you scroll down to my page 17, you can see the Canada Post, the tracking number for the Canada Post, 466CA under the tracking number. They're showing that when the delivery date was 2023-06-13. There's a signature of LH on there. So there is a signature, and you can also see on my page 18, again, the tracking number for the corresponding mailer that went out. It shows the delivery date as well and the time it was delivered. So we did send out the original mailer. We sent out the registered mailer. We had received mailers in the past as noted. So we feel that the burden of proof should be changed to the applicant. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lobenstein. Mr. Smith, questions?
Yes, just briefly. So as you've indicated, you regularly received the income and expense questionnaires from the owner in the past.
That's correct.
And you did receive it in the following year.
That's correct. We did not receive it.
So this is kind of an anomaly.
Yeah, that we
speak.
I mean, they have complied in the past, yes. So I mean, which is odd because that means we know we have the mailing address correct. It was signed for, they did receive it. So yeah. Okay,
those are all of my questions.
Thank you. Mr. Whitbread, questions?
I have none, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Schultz?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, nor do I. Mr. Smith, before we go in camera, is there anything more you'd like to add?
There is, yes.
Okay.
So the subject property was Bueller Furniture, furniture manufacturer. We all know about the impacts of COVID, obviously, and the impacts of COVID on the hotel industry in particular, as well as the shifts in furniture manufacturing to lower cost centers around the world. All of these things have conspired in the very recent time from COVID forward to largely kill off much of our furniture manufacturing in the city of Winnipeg. I do work for a number of these entities, and they've all either struggled mightily or not survived. And in most cases, it's not survived. That is what has happened with Buhler. They were not able to profitably continue, and were forced to shut down their business during this COVID timeframe. It was obviously a very tumultuous timeframe, and they were essentially just selling off equipment and things like that out of the facility, any remaining stock. So it wasn't operating in a normal manner by any means. They are regularly compliant and have been compliant since. So really, we're looking at a single one-off instance here in a time of disruption. So I feel, and I know what the rules are, but I feel like applying the penalty in an instance such as this is somewhat punitive, particularly given the spread in market valuation that we're looking at for the subject property as well.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Lobenstein, questions?
I have no questions, no.
Ms. Schultz, questions?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Whitbread?
I have none, thank you.
Nor do I. Okay, thank you. The panel will go in camera and make a decision with respect to the burden of proof and the non-compliance issue. Thanks very much. After consideration, the panel will grant the assessor's request that the burden of proof be placed on the applicant for non-cooperation. So, Mr. Smith, that means the burden of proof shifts to you, and you can introduce the property and begin with your evidence, please.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. So we're looking at 700 King Edward Street. Do I need to read the roll number in?
No, I think Mr. Lobenstein's already done that, right? Yeah.
Okay. All right, 700 King Edward Street. It is a single occupant warehouse building. It was used for both production and warehousing of furniture by the property owner. As already mentioned, the property is a total of 140,587 square feet. The vast majority of this, 83%, if you do the math, of the property was built in 1953. This is the original building, 116,193 square feet with an 18-foot wall height. The remainder of the building, small addition put on in 2002, a little over 24,000 square feet, with the higher ceiling height of 23 feet, giving us the total of 140,587 square feet. It is zoned M2. Sits on 5.32 acres, and we have a land plan area ratio of 1.7 0.65 to 1. So I will take you up to my cover page just to give you the breakdown of the portions of the property. Obviously, you can see the addition on the right-hand side of that. That is the northern portion of the property. You can see the dock level loading for that portion of the property. And the remainder of the property is the 1953 portion with the lower ceiling height. So in total, 140,000 square feet. This is certainly a very significant size for the city of Winnipeg. I will point out it's not a new 140,000 square feet. It's largely built in 1953. It has a very low land plan area ratio. So from a tenant's perspective or an occupier's perspective, there's very little outside storage or staging area available for truck access, etc. Makes the property much less attractive and usable from those perspectives. It's also more centrally located, less of a distribution type center, as many of the new facilities that are being built are more peripheral to the city. This is located right on Route 90, adjacent to the Polo Park area. So you have, well, it is on Route 90. You do have to negotiate all of the traffic in that area to get access to the property. I will take you again to my cover page. So if you look at the aerial there, your truck traffic is traveling southward. So it would be traveling towards the left-hand side of the property on the frontage road there, and would have to stop and back into the parking lot. So blocking traffic on Route 90, etc. So not the most ideal location from that perspective for nearly all users that would need a space of this size. So we can move into the photos of the property beginning on page number 4. As you can see, it is wide open, 140,000 square foot roof, requires a lot of ongoing maintenance, obviously, particularly if it's older, as this one is. You can see they do have some office area built out at the front. On page number 5, you can see where that starts. The wood roof being shown on page 5 as well. Page number 6 shows you a portion of the newer area, the loading area. And then we move into the front office area of the original building, again, wide open, unused, as you can see, as the business has shut down. Furniture manufacturing, as I've already mentioned, being very heavily impacted, both by lower costs production centers around the world, as well as the massive impact of COVID on this particular industry and the hotel industry that it services, etc. More photos of the office on the top of page number 7, and then one of the exterior area. So as you can see, there is there is employee parking there as well, which also limits the use of that exterior area. The site is shown on page number 8 and the location on page number 9. As mentioned, it is on Route 90, just north of Sargent. We've all traveled that area many times, I'm sure, and the traffic is a bit of a nightmare. So it does have an impact on the utility of properties in that area, particularly if they have large truck access needs. Moving on to the valuation on my page number 12. The property was owner occupied through 2022 as they wound down their business and sold off their assets through that period of time. So as an owner occupier, there is no lease in place. Obviously, we need to look at the marketplace for an appropriate rent. So subject is 140,000 square feet. Let's look at our first couple of comps there. 1,000 King Edward. So very close in terms of location. Our leases there are from 2020 and 2021, and they're at $5 and $5.60 a square foot. However, the sizes of them are significantly different. So we're looking at 40,000 square feet for the $5.60 lease and 85,000 square feet for the $5 per square foot lease. Property is slightly newer, built in 1966, but, and significant, this is significant, it has a significantly higher wall height at 25 feet, making it much more attractive to potential tenants and occupants in terms of being able to rack their product. So superior property, smaller lease sizes, and they're generating $5 to $5.60 in the immediate area. Moving down, 1150 Fife, 2020 lease for 108,000 square feet, so getting closer in size. It's also newer, 1979, and has a significantly higher wall height of 31 feet. So this is a much better in terms of warehousing. They're generating $5.65 per square foot there, right in Inkster Park. 1245 Border, 2020 lease, $4.06 for just over 60,000 square feet. Little newer, etc. 1821 Wellington. This is the old Sears warehouse building. I wasn't able to determine a date in time. It is older. I don't have the ceiling height there. It's a bit of a multi-tenant mishmash. This is obviously the very bottom end of the market. We're not putting a lot of reliance on it. We're just simply showing the larger leases in the marketplace for properties that are of a similar vintage and are directly comparable. So that is 146,000 square feet, bit of an older lease at 2016 as well. So we're not putting a lot of weight on that. 1093 Sherwin. This is in the area, a little closer to the airport. 2020 lease, 1964 building with a 19-foot ceiling height. So similar to the subject at 18 feet for the majority of it. This is a manufacturer and warehouse, and it is truly an arm's length lease, 175,000 square feet at $3.65 per square foot for a 5-year term starting in 2020. So where does that put the subject? Well, if you look at those comps, it would be it should fall below the ones at King Edward for obvious reasons. Higher ceiling height, newer, considerably smaller area, so you'll have greater tenants, higher lease rate, obviously. So it'll fall below those and should be above Sherwin, as it is slightly larger, a little bit newer, etc. I think I've talked through all of the points of these. We have used a rate of $4.25 per square foot as appropriate for the subject. And I think when you look at all the aspects that I've detailed here, that is a very appropriate rent for what you would be getting here. So $4.25 a square foot is used. The vacancy rate for the subject property We've deferred to the city's 4.5%. What I would point out is that your risk of vacancy for a larger facility such as this is considerably higher than for your standard multi-tenant property with, call it 3,000 to 10,000 square foot units. So there is a greater risk of vacancy. You can see that in the stats shown above. Single tenant investment vacancy for industrial being at 4.8. The 5-year single tenant investment vacancy 6.7%, etc. So generally, you would be looking at a higher vacancy risk. We've not applied a higher vacancy rate, but we do take that into account in the overall valuation through the capitalization rate applied. Our expense allowance, we've deferred to the city's 3% as well as the shortfall rate, and we can move into capitalization rate on page 15. Pardon me. Obviously, this is a larger property at 140,000 square feet, single occupant that is also older as well. There's a number of things that should be considered in selecting the cap rate. First point being high capital investment expenses. You have a very large roof to be maintained here, as well as the HVAC costs for a space of that size. You also have limited ability to convert to multi-tenancy. When you look at the layout of the property, it abuts essentially the two frontage roads and has very limited land area. So your ability to multi-tenant that is quite low. And associated with that, your vacancy risk for a property of this size would be higher. So that should have an impact on the capitalization rate as well. So looking at cap rate ranges for the commercial brokerages, we have Colliers indicated here at 6 to 7% for industrial Class A properties. This would not fall into that given its age, etc. And 6.5 to 7.5% for industrial Class B properties. This would certainly be a Class B property. Our market comps remain the same, as well as the commentary regarding interest rates. So we have taken all of this into account and applied a capitalization rate of 7% to the subject property. So if you look at the rental rate applied, in my summary on page 16, we used 4.25. That was very much in line with the comparables provided. And the capitalization rate obviously would fall towards the middle to upper end of the range that is being indicated there. So using these parameters, we arrive at our final market value of $7,545,000. Now, I realize that's significantly different than what the city has as the assessment, but truly, we are looking at simply applying appropriate market rates for the subject in arriving at this. We're not looking for the lowest possible outcome here. I feel all of these are conservative estimates and that the $7,545,000 is very well supported. I am open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Lobenstein, questions?
Just a few. On your page 12, the 1821 Wellington, the 2016 start date, the $2 rent, I think this is the Park and Fly. We've seen this one many times. It's my understanding that this is not a net rent and shouldn't be used as comparables. Can you speak to that at all, or?
I have spoken with the tenant actually, and they indicated that it was a net rent.
Okay.
that it is a heated facility. But that is what's been conveyed to me. Now, I'm not sure what detail you have.
Well, just within the mailers that we have from them, it's not indicated as a net rent, but that's fine. And those are all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lovenstein. Mr. Whitbread?
I think I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schultz.
No questions, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I did have a question originally, Mr. Smith, about how you arrived at that $425 rent, but you explained it well, so I appreciate that. And that's all I had. So, Mr. Lobenstein, to you.
The address 700 King Edward Street. The assessed value we have at $9,738,000. We're looking at 1953 to 2002 for actual and effective years built. As we spoke about before, we have wall heights ranging from 18 to 23 feet, land area of 231,933 square feet. And the land to plan and the leasable area are the same at 140,587 square feet for a land to plan ratio of 1.65. Moving to my page 3, you can see the comparables. Similar to Mr. Smith, we are looking for larger comparables, and there's only so many in Winnipeg of a similar vintage. So my effective year of builds for mine range from 1970 to 1974. They are slightly newer than the subject property. That being said, I have them on Plymouth, Dunlop, Phoebe, Saskatchewan, and Hutchings. We're looking at lease starts ranging from 2017 up to 2022, with again, fairly typical lease terms from 1 to 18 years. The 18-year one is a little atypical, but we have some from 7 and 4 and 3 years as well. The leased areas are close to the subject property, ranging from 91,431 square feet all the way up to 147,669 square feet. You can see the wall heights range from as high as 31 feet to 18 feet. And again, the rental rates range from $4.65 a square foot all the way up to $6.10 a square foot. So when we look at the income workup, we can see the leasable area of 140,587. We're applying a $4.98 rent. That is supported by the rent comparables I just spoke of, and we get a potential rent of $700,123. We're applying a 4.5% vacancy, 3% expenses, and $4 shortfall, the same as Mr. Smith. And we're applying a 6.4% capitalization rate here. Applying that capitalization rate to the NOI gets us our estimated assessed value of $9,738,000. Scroll into the capitalization rate chart. At 6.2%, this falls within the 20th to the 80th percentile. It kind of falls almost right in the middle. Between the 5.35 and the 7.35, it also falls within all of the outside sources we have on the other side there. So this is a fairly typical type of industrial property within the St. James area. Again, we can look at my addenda on page 8. You can see where it's located near Sargent. You can see the exterior pictures. Mr. Smith went through a very good building description of the property, so I won't go into as much detail. Again, you can see that there is access from Barrie and King Edward Street. It fronts Sargent. There is no access for trucks or cars from Sargent, just King Edward and Barrie Street. And there's just some pictures I took off the internet on page 10. You just sort of see the quality of the building at the moment. You can see the newer area on page 11. And just some office and gym area they have in there on page 12. So we feel that the value of $9,738,000 is fair and should be confirmed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lobenstein. Mr. Smith, questions?
Yes, just a couple. Looking at the rent comparables on page 3, do you agree that each of these is considerably newer than the majority age of the subject of 1953?
Yeah, they are newer in 1970. I mean, I feel like there's so few rare rentals, places being properties being rented that are 140,000 square feet. So you really have to branch out with your areas and the effective years built.
Okay, and the again, the wall height. So subject property, 83% of it is that original warehouse at 18 feet. All of these, with the exception of one, are well, 22, 26, 31, 25 average wall height. So that would tend to drive higher rental rates, correct?
Yeah, it's one of the factors that definitely drive higher rental rates. I mean, again, when you're looking at larger buildings, same issue as you're built. There's only so many of them. So, I mean, like I said, like you mentioned, I have one at 18 feet, another one close at 22 feet. So,
okay, just bear with me for just a second here. And the majority of these are in Inkster Park, correct?
Plymouth, yeah, and Fife, Hutchins, yeah. Saskatchewan's fairly close to the subject property.
Okay, but they're dominantly in a more traditional industrial park area with better truck access, etc.
Yeah, Inkster Park is considered industrial park, although I will mention St. James does have a lot of industrial as well.
Right, and the St. James stock would generally be of an older vintage, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, moving quickly on to cap rate. So the city has a 6.4% capitalization rate. When I look at your page number 6, again, we'd be looking at an industrial B property here. Is that fair to say?
That would be how the outside sources would categorize it, yes.
Okay, and so Colliers has it from 6 to 7, CBRE 6.5 to 7.5, and Cushman 6 to 6.75%. That's pretty exact number. Anyway, the 6.4% is following towards the lower end of this, correct? Would there not be greater consideration of both the vacancy risk, the size of the land parcel and available utility outside, the ceiling height, age, etc., in determining the cap rate?
Yeah, I mean, I think for the outside sources, it sort of falls almost right in between all of them except for CBRE. So, I mean, it's within their range, within our range. So I think it's a suitable cap rate for this type of property.
Okay, I'll rephrase as we have to do this through questions. So while it does fall within their ranges, would the subject property as a larger vacant industrial older property with lower ceiling height, etc., not be more appropriately categorized towards the upper end of the capitalization rate ranges that we're seeing?
I can't. I mean, I can't really speak to how they would categorize it. I'm just showing the ranges, and we've modeled it at 6.4%.
Okay.
So, I mean,
those are all of my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Ms. Schultz, questions for Mr. Lobenstein?
No questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Whitbread?
Just trying to clarify something, and maybe I missed this. When were your photographs taken?
I just got them off the internet. I guess they were advertising for lease space, so I took them off of their brochure and put them into my brief, just to show the state of the current the building.
Yeah, yeah, because I note, coming back to the applicant's comments, that large portions appear empty in his photographs, but large portions appear full of product in your photographs.
Well, it is, I mean, owner occupied at the moment, so.
But these would not be current photographs. They should be closer to the reference date, should they not? Well, but you can't answer that, I think you said.
No.
Okay, just a bit of a discrepancy from my mind. And when I look inside the, you can see one of the doors on page 10 is open. It looks like it's full to the roof. Okay, I have no other questions.
Thank you very much. And I have no questions either. Mr. Smith, would you care for summation?
Yes, just very, very briefly. So whether the non-cooperation penalty is applied or not, and it has been in this circumstance, I do feel that it's critical to carefully review and decide the case, obviously based on the material presented, rather than, not saying this will happen, rather than the fact that there will be no reduction for the property owner given the application of the non-cooperation penalty. It's important for the future.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Thank you.
Mr. Lobenstein?
I have no summation.
Thank you. That will conclude item 5. And with that, we've heard all items on our agenda today, and this hearing is now adjourned. Thank you, Mr. Lobenstein and Mr. Smith, for your presentations today.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Have a
Appreciate
good
it.
day.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.